but we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 4:32, and we will just start by going through the roll here and seeing who all's on the call. Louise McClellan.
I'm here.
Jesse McDaniel, present. Teresa Tessner.
Here.
Evan Cox.
Here.
And William Rooks. Here yet. And Terry Plochet. Here, Terry. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a quorum, and we can go ahead and call the meeting to order. First thing on our agenda is approval of minutes. I don't see minutes here.
There are none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And the treasurer's report, this is normally given to us by William. He's the secretary treasurer. So we may have to come back to that because I don't have that information. But we'll come back once William gets on the call. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the permit requests. That's what most of us are here for. So let's just start out taking a look at permit request number 1, Mobile area water and sewer system. And this is involving removal of a 4-inch diameter Crape Myrtle to allow installation of a new water line. So is there anyone here to speak to in favor of that request or to represent Moz?
I'm here to represent Moz. I'm the project engineer working for Moz on the project.
All right, just give us your name and we'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. My name is Kirby Latham, and I work with Neil Schaefer here in Mobile. And again, we're a consultant for Moz. The reason for the water line improvement is the old water line that runs down the back alley between on the back of the lots that face McDonald Avenue. There's some water quality issues, so Moz is wanting to go in and replace the water line. We know that there's a lot of trees. We know that there's a lot of fencing. There's a lot of sheds at the back of the property. So what Moz has proposed to do is go in and do a directional drill. And we wanted to start the directional drill at Slava Street and then have the termination at the very west end of Monroe Street. So basically to directional drill, we'll go in and we'll have our 2 pits, at the south end and at the north end, and do our water drilling, and then we'll tie everything in. The Crape Myrtle in question is on the north side of Slava Street. It's located within that old city alley right of way. And we have a pay item set up in the contract for property restoration that would take care of, replacing the Crape Myrtle if it's so desired to have it replaced.
Okay, Mr. Latham, thank you for that. Do we have anybody else here to speak? I thought I heard somebody else come on that was here to talk about that permit request.
Miss Rhonda Allen.
Okay, Miss Allen, are you still on the call with us?
She is. You're muted, Miss Allen.
I am, but I really didn't have any objections to it or anything like that. I just wanted to be aware of what was going on.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you for that. We certainly want folks to know what's going on. So, okay. Well, I'll turn to the tree commissioners now and just ask if there are any questions that you have for Mr. Latham. Since he's with us here on the call, we can ask him a question or anybody else. So, tree commissioners, what are your thoughts here?
Well, yeah, I think that we should approve this, the necessary removal of the Crape Myrtle so the work can be done as long as there is a replacement tree put back in.
Okay. And Mr. Latham, I see you shaking your head. That is y'all's plan, right?
Yes, sir. We will do everything we can to get a replacement to the same size. But we'll go ahead and, I mean, we can definitely make a note in the construction plans is that the contractor, is to replace it, once construction activities are done in order to, bring the Crape Myrtle back and put it in its close where the existing one used to be.
Okay. And real quick technical question for Peter. Is that okay with your department? Does he need to coordinate that with you?
Yes, Jesse, the replacement tree would need to have it would need to be a species of crepe myrtle with a growth potential of 35 foot or less. That way the tree can grow to its natural form and benefit the area the most.
Okay.
And and what would be the minimum, what would be the size that you'd be looking for it to go in at, Peter?
Teresa, I'd like to see 3 to 4 inch DBH crepe myrtle go in. That way it's not too big, but not too small, and it can actually grow and thrive rather quickly.
So Teresa, do you want to try to incorporate that into a motion?
Sure. So I move that we approve the permit with the condition that crepe myrtle species and size be replaced according to the conditions that Peter or forestry designate.
I'll second that.
Okay, it sounded like Evan seconded that motion. And so is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All right, well, I'm hearing none, so I'm going to ask if we can go ahead and call for the question on the permit request number 1 presented by Mr. Latham on behalf of Moz. All those in favor of the motion, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who are opposed, please make it known by a sign of no. And it sounds like the ayes have it. Okay, so Mr. Latham, thank you for your time. Your permit request has been approved as stated.
Yes, sir. I think everyone's time for this as well. And Peter, if you don't mind, I'll get with you to make sure that we get the project note the way it needs to be in the plans so that everyone's on board. And I'll, if there's any, coordination on your part as far as notice before anything's planted, we'll make sure that we'll put all that in there as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Latham.
All right, thank you.
All right, so moving right along, we have permit request number 2 through, looks like most of these here are from Jubileescape. I guess we'll take these one at a time, but Jubileescape for the Downtown Mobile Alliance, removal of 3 banana trees and replacement with Phoenix sylvestris palms. Is there anyone here to speak to that for from Jubileescape or Downtown Mobile Alliance?
I mean, I'll
I'm here,
start
David.
and then Jubilee can correct anything I say incorrectly. But we last year, a year or two ago, we did the other end of the Explorium block with the Phoenix sylvestris to carry forward with the plantings that were done on Royal in that block, and our goal is to replace the banana trees, which have not really done much because they die back with the Phoenix sylvestris, just to kind of make the whole block look like there's a plan, and so that was the idea there.
And tell me just for the record, your name and organization?
My apologies. I'm Elizabeth I see my name, and so I forget to verbalize it. Elizabeth Stevens with the Downtown Mobile Alliance.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, for being with us. Okay, so that is permit request number 2. And as we go through these tree commissioners, they are listed individually. So we do need to, plow through these one by one, unless y'all decided you wanted to group them up or something of that nature. So can we go ahead and Elizabeth, are you going to speak to all of these?
Well, I have a little wrinkle.
Okay, what is that?
Well, so, we started this in early August before 2 storms, and in these months of thinking about the tree planting, it seems to me that we ought to, instead of making the transition from the Phoenix sylvestris to the sable at government, that we ought to continue at least up to dolphin with the Phoenix sylvestris. And my idea is that we could move the palms that are there, which are a little bit more than half the trees in those 2 blocks. One, the contai was cut off by the Riverview, so that's really a double block. And do the Phoenix sylvestris there, and then move the sable palmetto to Contai Street, which more than the majority of the trees on Contai are the sable palmetto. And so that is a little bit of a different request than what we made, way back when, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And I've talked to Peter about it, and he seemed to be copacetic with it, and the same with the various folks at the city on my board. So that's kind of what we're thinking. And the play on royal and the queen palm and all that. So that's the little wrinkle that we have, that we would be asking, instead of the sable palmetto, for, if we can find the money, to do the Phoenix sylvestris on all of royal, and I understand that we may have to apply for that on the sites that we haven't applied for it, but on all of royal between government and dolphin.
So that would affect your agenda item number 3, I believe, and number 6.
That is correct.
That's correct. Same, replacing palms, but just different palms.
Right.
Actually, so what is 6?
1 and
6, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so help me understand. You just said on terms of the agenda, we're looking at number 2 instead of Phoenix sylvestris. You're wanting to replace that with a sable palm, correct?
No, 2 is the same.
2 would be the
Sorry,
same.
this is
3 would be instead of the sable, the Phoenix, and 6. No, and 6.
6.
That tree was actually basically taken out by the hurricane. 6 would be the Phoenix sylvestris instead of the sable.
Okay, so, all right. 3 and 6.
Just knowing that we would only do that if it's, if we can do the whole 2 blocks and not just one random tree.
Right, okay. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to go through these, and for those 2 that we need to make changes for, we're going to be very specific about that when we come to that one, okay? So y'all help me stay on track. So for number 2, this one is not changing, correct?
Correct.
All right. So on the permit request number 2 about removing the banana trees, tree commissioners, do I hear a motion on this permit request?
I make a motion that we approve.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded that we approve permit request number 2 as written. And is there any discussion on that particular permit request?
I just want to clarify with Peter that that palm species is doing well in the area, and that would be an appropriate planting.
Yes, yes, downtown, Teresa, the species they have, I'll give them their props. They've done their research to see what would be salt tolerant downtown and would look nice and thrive. So in this move, I give it my full support from an arboricultural standpoint.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Thank you, Teresa. All right. So we've got a motion and a second, and we're going to go ahead and call for the question on permit request number 2. So if you are in favor of approval of the permit request, please let me know by the sign of aye. Aye.
Aye.
And if you are opposed, please let it be known by the sign of no. All right, so the ayes have it. Permit request number 3, we have the
Chairman,
removal.
let me just note that Mr. Rooks is now on the call.
Yes, I'm glad I could join. Thank you.
All right, great. Good. Thanks, William. Glad to see you. Okay, going back now, we're on number 3. Removal of one sable palm and replacement. We're changing this one to replacement with Phoenix sylvestris palm. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
As long as you kind of buy into the idea of that, of those 2 blocks being the Phoenix sylvestris.
Well, I mean, I would have a question then. Is there a problem with 2 blocks of these palms put together? I mean, are we dealing with a question of a monoculture, too many of them? Peter, what's the?
Teresa, if we got over a quarter-mile worth of one tree, that's when a monoculture would become an issue. When it becomes to a couple of blocks, you're looking at a low-scale project like this. I reached out to a couple of my proteges with the state, the palm experts, and this small of an area that they're doing, there's no problem with a monoculture.
Okay. All right, so she already gave us some information about this, tree commissioners. Do you have a desire to move a motion on this particular tree request?
I would make a motion to approve with the change as documented.
Okay. So we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, I think I heard Teresa first.
Mhm.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second, and is there any discussion on this particular permit request? Okay, so the only discussion I would add is that we're going to restate this exactly as removal of one sable palm and replacement with Phoenix sylvestris palm. And so if you are in favor of that motion, will you please let it be known by the sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. And if you are opposed, please let it be known by a sign of no. Okay, hearing none, the permit request number 3 is approved. Moving on to permit request number 4. We have Jubileescape for Downtown Alliance, removal of one elm and replacement with sable palm. This one is not changing from what I understand. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but this one we're going to stick with the way it's listed there.
Correct. And more than a majority of the trees on Conti, with the Zelkova, which this is, which we did about 25 years ago on Conti, is a great tasty treat to the termites. Clayton can attest to picking up trees that just suddenly fall over. So we've been changing that out to the sable palmetto. A great majority of the trees in the section between Royal and Jackson are the sable. So our goal is to replace them all of the, and really, they took a big beating during the storm, and we're looking a little rough before. And so I think what we'd like to do is, if the money's available, is to accelerate and finish that change out instead of this kind of half this, half that look that we have right now. But
Okay.
the
Okay.
question-
So thank you, Elizabeth, and tree commissioners. You've heard the information there, and if you have a desire to move forward with this, I'd ask somebody to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve just so we can get to conversation on it.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve permit number 4. Any further discussion on this particular permit request?
Just wanted to hear from Peter again if he had any additional comments.
Now, William, on this is a pretty textbook replacement. It's like the others. This is your average street tree replacement. There's no concern.
And just
All
for
right.
topic, I'm looking at the report. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong area, but the reports we used to get used to have kind of the staff's kind of summary write-up. Is that something that I'm not seeing here? Or is that something we've got away from? I see the picture. I see the.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
what I was directed to do is just start providing the applications to the tree commission rather than preparing the reports. We're down now about 6 staff members, so we really don't have resources available anymore to provide that level of service.
So then we could do what we're doing now. Then is as we go through these, the staff can provide feedback as we look through them. I'm good with supporting that.
I did, however, provide you with an agenda that had Urban Forestry's site inspection comments where they recommended the replacement or not. And in this case, they did recommend replacement.
All right, I'll look at that. But that's all the questions I had.
All right, thank you, William and Bert. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the question on permit request number 4. Removal of 1 elm and replacement with sable palm. If you are in favor of that permit request being approved, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed, please let it be known by a sign of no. All right, so the ayes have it. And moving on to permit number 5, removal of 1 ash and replacement with sable palm. This one is remaining the same. There's no need to change that from what I noted. So I hear a motion on this?
Make a motion that we approve the removal of the ash and replacement and replace it with a sable palm.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve this permit request. The discussion here, is there any discussion? Okay, so this one, the ash this is part of what we were trying to do along Conti. So that's why the ash needs to go. Is that right? The ash is not.
It's not an ash, it's a Zelkova.
Oh, okay.
That was just a mistake on the application. I don't know if that matters, but.
Yeah, I think we want to get it right for the minutes. So we'll just note that when somebody. Okay, we've already had a motion and a second. So
I'm noting that in the minutes.
Okay, so this is a Zelkova, not an ash. All right. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. We've got the question of approving permit request number 5, removal of 1 Zelkova and replacement with a sable palm. All those in favor of approving that request, please let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed, please let it be known by the sign of no. Okay, hearing none, the ayes have it. Permit number 6, removal of one maple and replacement with sable palm. This is one we're going to change. We need that motion to be removal of one maple and replacement with a Phoenix sylvestris palm, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right, tree commissioners, do you have a pleasure of how you want to move on this?
I just had a question on this particular location for a tree. Is this the one where there's a balcony nearby? Did I see that on the photos? This particular tree?
Elizabeth,
There are
can you
trees
speak to
on
that?
either side of the balcony. One is a maple that is, am I right about that, Clayton? Is this the one that's on the right side of the balcony?
Yeah, that's the maple on the right side, and then a sable palm on the left.
And
Okay.
it was shorn off in the storm, so it's about 5 feet tall now.
So the picture is pre-storm that I'm looking at.
All right, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, I just want to make sure, I know that, we've had some issues with trees being too close to balconies downtown, and I just want to make sure that, this is an appropriate tree replacement to go in there. Make sure we have room.
Yeah, Teresa, on this, the growth, the twig elongation rate of a palm, if you want to say it has a twig elongation rate, it's very slow growth. It would take, even on this, it could potentially be borderline, but I see much more benefit in having a palm in that tree well than opposed to a tree with an excurrent growth that will grow wider, because the maples would love, when they have the right space, they grow very wide and very, very thick, and a palm would keep that upright center growth to properly benefit that area.
Okay.
I mean, it is, I was wrong. It is in the middle of the balcony. But the balcony works around it now, and it will provide some shade and some consistency along the street. So I'm thinking, Peter, that like you say, it's okay to go ahead and plant this one.
Yeah, in an area like that, it's of my experience that if you plant a tree with a more skinny upright growth, you have the best chance to provide shade, still absorb rainwater, things of that nature in a confined area. It's much better than nothing, and it's much better than a stunning growth tree that just terminates out after a short amount of time. So it would be the most benefit to the environment in that area.
Okay. All right, so you've heard the information. Does anybody else have any other, well, do we have a motion on number 6?
No, sir.
All right,
I'll make a motion that we approve the removal of the maple tree and replacement of it with a sable palm.
The sylvestris.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, with the sylvestris.
I would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to remove one maple tree and replace with a Phoenix sylvestris palm. All right, and is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask for y'all to please, if you're in favor of approving this permit request, would you please let it be known by the sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. And if you're opposed, will you please let it be known by the sign of no? All right, so the ayes have it. And moving on down to number 7, we have removal of one sable palm and replacement with sable palm. I believe this one is going to need to stay just as it says there.
Correct.
All right, so tree commissioners, do we have
I just have a question. What was the cause of the failure for this particular tree? I mean, you know, if it didn't like, if sable palm doesn't grow there, well, should sable palm go back in?
I would say, you know, we've got 3 sable palms directly beside it in existing tree wells, which have thrived. We really don't know what has happened with this one. They were all planted at the same time.
Okay. And when were those planted? Do you know?
Probably 2 years, David. Do you remember?
Year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, it just could have been a bad palm. They're all hurricane cut, and they come in, and sometimes when you lose one, you don't know it until you put it in the ground. And that one of I think 7 we planted that go around. Only one of them died.
Teresa, a little tidbit of knowledge on it. When a palm is transported and installed, the primary meristem on the top of the tree, it's hard to tell when they're damaged, and that'll cause a palm to terminate after time, because it very well could have been transported at the time, but it's very few and far between. But that's one of your more common palm tree terminations in that type of environment.
okay, so you've heard the information there. Does anybody else on the tree commission have a question about this particular permit before we entertain a motion? All right, so we would need a motion here to approve this.
And make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve permit number 7. Is there any further discussion on this before we take a vote? All right, so hearing none, I'm going to ask if you will please if you're in favor of approving permit request number 7, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And if you're opposed, please say no. Okay, so the ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on down to number 8, we have a permit request from McCrory and Williams for Graff Dairy LLC. And I would just ask if there was anyone here to represent this permit request.
We are. It's Sean Estes, and I'm joined with Don Whittington. We're here, McCrory and Williams.
All right, Sean, thank you for joining us. Do you want to just go ahead and speak to your permit request?
Sure. I'm not sure. I'll give you a little bit of history on the project. You know, this is roughly about 17 acres of undeveloped property there at the corner of Sage and Dolphin Street. It's owned by the Graff family for many generations. They are trying to develop a part of it, and we are working with them along with BT Roberts and Doug Anderson, and trying to we've been charged with building a access drive into the property. They've entered into an agreement with AltaPoint, which is a mental health care provider around town here, to move their facility in there. So, you know, we move forward with the plans to, and through the Planning Commission to have plans for this access drive. And through that process, let me back up. You know, when we started the design of this, it made sense for us to locate this access drive across from an existing median cut on Dolphin Street. And so that's what we did, you know, instead of having to try to make another median cut and impact, you know, existing trees and stuff. So we located the access drive across from the existing median cut. And through the review process and the planning commission process, the city had asked us to build a turn lane in the median. And in doing that, you know, we've impacted a number of crepe myrtles. So, you know, that's where we're at, and we've come to the commission to ask for, you know, an opportunity to either, you know, replant crepe myrtles at another location, move them over, or what. But that's what we're here today to discuss.
Okay, thank you, sir, for bringing that information to us. I noticed here on the information that we were given on the agenda, it says comments not provided at this time. I'm not sure. I guess that means that the city didn't have a chance to take a look at this, or there's no recommendation from them on this.
Yeah, I apologize on that, Jesse. I'll be honest with you, man, these storms, there's not enough caffeine I've been able to consume to keep up. On this, I have looked at it. In the area where they want the turn lane, the trees are directly in the center of where the slip lane would be constructed. So if the slip lane goes in, there's no way to even structurally save the trees, because the actual roadbed would go straight through the center of said trees.
Yeah. So my question that I saw when I was looking at it is, it says removal of multiple crepe myrtles. Do we know a number of how many crepe myrtles?
Sean, you have a plan to show, correct? Because when y'all initially showed it to me, it showed.
Well, we did, and I thought that was part of our application, but yeah, I think it's 11. The number is 11, and the existing trees fall directly over a existing sewer line. And I mean, I can kind of hold up something here, but you're not going to be able to see that. But I don't have a plan, you know, to show. I mean, we have a plan, but I don't have anything that would. Did that answer your question, Jesse? I'm sorry, but
yeah. So I was really wanting to know the number involved.
11.
Bert,
Okay.
if I look at the file that you can access, it does show that plan in there.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And it looks like 11. Although the pictures that were provided with it don't seem to match up. But yes, the view they have shows those crepe myrtles.
All right. So we've got 11 crepe myrtles that's being asked to remove to allow construction of a new turn lane. And does anybody have any more questions for Sean before we kind of just start discussing it amongst ourselves?
The only question I had, I'm sorry, Trish. The only question I had was answered. I was just curious if there were the trees in the proposed turn lane as well. If there are no trees on the side of the road, that was my main question I had.
Jesse, if I may.
Yeah, sure, Peter.
Yeah, William, on the southern side of the road, there are some of the most beautiful live oaks going down Dolphin Street, which I will give this development props. They are working around these live oaks, and they are working according to tree care standards around these live oaks to make sure they stay and beautify the roadway there. On the northern side is another run of live oaks that's in the median at Sage Park. So that's on both sides the greenscape.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So tree commissioners, you've go ahead. Did I hear?
Sorry, yeah, I have a question. And so the turn lane and the cutout and the in grid, all that has been approved by the planning commission?
Yes, ma'am, it has.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not taking trees down if something was going to change as far as approvals go.
No, and the median cut is there. The is an existing median cut. So that, again, that's why we positioned and located the access drive where we did, so we could utilize the existing median cut, and then the turn lane would be what the city asked additional.
It looks like you're just expanding the cut that's already there.
That's correct.
All right.
Okay, so you tree commissioners have heard the information. Do we have a motion on this, or and then, of course, when we make a motion, have a second, we ask for more discussion. So if you do want to make a motion on this, I would just ask that you please include in your motion the exact number of crepe myrtles. So that way there's no question on this.
I would make a motion to approve the 11 crepe myrtles as identified.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the permit request, and that's for removal of 11 crepe myrtles to allow for construction of a new turn lane. So is there any other discussion?
If no trees are going to be able to go back in, I'd like to see if the motion could be amended to have tree donations to the tree bank for each of these 11 removals.
All right. Okay, so Teresa has brought up the tree bank, which I'll just, for everybody on the call, we typically require a contribution to the tree bank when we have to remove trees in the right of way. So that's something we can make a part of our approval of this permit. And if that's the pleasure of the tree commission, we can do that. Would the maker of the motion want to amend that, or do you want to look at a 2-for-1 replacement? Because that's also something we've talked about, but I'm not sure if you can replace these trees in this area. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up since we're in discussion, that we can amend the motion to include that.
Now, Teresa, you said if they cannot be replaced, then you would ask for a tree bank donation. Is that what you said?
Right. I mean, I got the impression that there's not going to be any, it's not like, oh, we'll have a strip of land here now available where we could plant, 22 trees. So
I think that's what,
since we're going to lose trees, I just wanted us to get a tree, something done with the tree bank for that.
Yeah. And
all right, and Teresa, go ahead, William.
I was just going to say this one is a little different because it is just the median cut. So we're not talking about the overall property on the other side of the street. But yes, I would be fine with that amendment. And if those trees later on, if it has to come back with the actual development itself, that is something we could consider. But for now, I would accept amendment with a donation to the tree bank.
Okay, and so just to be clear, the donation to the tree bank is, Teresa, do you recall, is it $200?
I think that's right. Bert, do you remember?
That is the last number that has been used by the tree commission, is $200 per tree.
And is it a 2-for-1 because of the size of these trees? Is that right? Is that what's called for? I'm sorry, I don't remember right off.
Well, your regulations state that you can require a 2-for-1 replacement. I'm not sure though if that would also mean a 2-for-1 donation to the tree bank.
Right, Teresa, I think what Bert is saying is that, you can require a 2-for-1 replacement if that makes sense, or you can just require the contribution to the tree bank where replacement is not possible. But it's up to this commission in terms of what you want the permit approval to say. So, but typically the $200 has been the contribution to the tree bank per tree.
Okay.
I would be fine. I mean, with crepe myrtles and just their nature and size, I would be fine for a 1-for-1. So it'd be 200 for each tree if Teresa would be open for that.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so it sounds like there's some agreement there. William, will you just do me a favor and restate your motion as accurately as you can?
I make a motion to accept the removal of the 11 crepe myrtles, with, if they cannot be replaced, a donation of $200 per each removed tree.
Okay. All right. And so that's the amended motion. And now we have any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I would just ask if we've got a motion and a second and no further discussion. I'll go ahead and call for the question on the permit request number 8 from McCrory and Williams on behalf of the Graft Dairy LLC. If you're in favor of approving the motion as stated, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Aye. And all those opposed, please say no. All right, I hear none, so the ayes have it, and the permit request is approved as stated.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you, sir. And moving on to permit request number 9, we have Jubileescape for Page and Jones. This is removal of 2 Bradford Pears and replaced with 3 Crape Myrtles. And is there anyone here to speak on this particular request?
Brian Martin on behalf of Page and Jones with Jubileescape.
Hey, Brian, thank you for joining us. Why don't you give us the skinny on this permit request?
It's my understanding they want to remove the 2 Bradford Pears. There was actually 3 of them there, and it's just a stump where the 3rd one was. They want to remove them and put in 3 30-gallon Natchez Crape Myrtles.
Okay.
Hey, Peter, what was, I thought we had kind of a standing direction on Bradford Pears. Is that not one of the trees that we had?
Trees as far as what, William?
I thought we had, didn't we consider them, I don't want to say invasive species, but wasn't that one of the ones that was on the approval list for removal?
Yeah, Bradford Pears are poor in structure from the get-go. By nature, they tear themselves apart over time. It's a good candidate for replacement to get the right tree in there to better suit the environment. Bradford Pear is just not a good tree to have.
Okay. And I do see here removal request is recommended by Urban Forestry. So thank you for that, Peter. Okay, so we've got a permit request in front of us here for removal of the 2 Bradford Pears replaced with 3 Crape Myrtles, as you heard.
Is there any public comment?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, yes. So we heard from the permit requestor. Let's hear from any public comment on this particular page. If you'll just identify yourself so we know who you are.
Okay, it's Elizabeth Stevens with the Alliance again. I was just going to ask Peter if he thought that the Crape Myrtle is the best option for this location.
Elizabeth, as far as a Crape Myrtle, I guess when I was asked about a Crape Myrtle, I always weigh apples to oranges on as far as a Bradford Pear and a Crape Myrtle. I didn't really go outside of what they wanted to do because a Crape Myrtle has a better chance of surviving and lasting longer. Is there a different species from your public comment that you would think?
I don't have any particular species in mind. We have, Crape Myrtle in this kind of environment is can be pretty messy, and it can be require a little bit of maintenance because it likes to give off babies and multi-trunk and those kinds of things. And so I was just curious if you thought there might be a better option.
Let me refresh my memory real fast. This is 52 North Jackson. Joel, did you look at this one?
I did.
Jesse, if I'm gonna step back off this because Joel physically put eyes on this, and I'm gonna allow him to give his comments on it if that's okay with you.
Okay, sure, Joel.
Well, I mean, as far as the trees, they were pretty, they were pretty poor structure. But what was specifically the question? What
Well, Elizabeth had, as you know, thinking of public comments, asking about, is that the right tree for the, for the location? Is that the best tree? And so I think that was her original question.
Well, I'll be honest, when I was there, I was looking more thinking about the trees, whether they ought to be removed. I wasn't really thinking with replacement in mind.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, if you don't know, that's okay.
Jesse, if I may.
Sure.
Jesse, I'm looking at a Google Street View image here. If now, Elizabeth, I'll say this: if a crepe myrtle is to go in place, it would need to be a dwarf variety that would not expand into the building, get high up into the power lines. This is more. Now, we'll say this: with there being a tree well there, and the infrastructure underground is limited for roots of a larger growing tree to actually move through the environment. This is where another slow growing tree would be recommended, either a palm, a ginkgo, something of that nature, to where it's to where it will be slow growing. Is that your young arbor speaking, Joe?
Yeah, it is.
But that's my comment on that, Jesse.
Okay. All right, and we may have some additional questions there. This was posed a little bit out of order, but we're going to come back to it. So let me go back to the agenda. So is there any, first of all, was there any other public comment? I saw that we did have an email which was shared with us from a member of the public. It says from Kevin Anderson.
Yes, sir.
It says here that received a letter about the proposal of removing the 2 Bradford pears. Cannot attend the meeting, but wanted to provide input. It says the trees in question were severely damaged by trucks going down North Jackson, and et cetera, about damage. One of the trees hangs over my home's power line. So this person is speaking in favor of removing these trees. It seems to think that they're a hazard to the power line. And so this person did submit their input with the previous email we got. So was there anyone else on the call on this particular permit request that wanted a chance to speak? Okay, so I think we may have gotten everybody on that. Now, to the tree commissioners, we've got a permit request in front of us. As it's written, it says removal of 2 Bradford pears and replacement with 3 Natchez Crape Myrtles. And of course, tree commissioners, you can approve this request as it is right here, or you can change it to approve something that's not exactly as you see it. But so just keep that in mind if you want to make a motion.
Well,
it doesn't.
Jesse, that's gonna be my question: is could we amend it to be removal of the Bradford pears and replace with the Crape Myrtles or a designated tree by the urban forestry staff, something along that line?
Yes, you could. You can make whatever motion you want to make, and it doesn't have to be as it's written here. So if you want to make a motion that is edited to according to what you said, you can do that.
Peter, is that something you guys would consider that you would take a look at and seeing if there's any other designated tree that might be a better fit?
Yeah, absolutely. The goal there, William, would be to plant a tree that can grow, be nice, and the power company wouldn't have to touch it on a later date. That would be the ideal goal.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and make that motion then to approve the removal of the Bradford pears and replace with the Natchez Myrtles or a designated tree by the urban forestry staff.
All right, so we've got a motion from William. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that?
Hey, Jesse, it's Eric with the power company. I would just say, Peter, if you do get ready to remove those, make sure you just get with us and we'll help you get them down safely if they're inside minimum approach, which I'm sure they are.
Okay, Eric, thank you for that. And I think the motion is inclusive of the language of, in coordination with urban forestry. So if Peter and Eric need to get together on that, that's something I think that y'all can do.
What is the time frame on the decision of type of tree?
Okay, so let us address the permit request as it's stated right now. We've got a motion and a second, and then we can, get you your information that you need afterward, okay? All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion from the tree commission? Okay, hearing none, so I'm going to call for the question now on permit request number 9 for Page and Jubileescape for Page and Jones. We've got a motion and a second. So all those in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Aye. And all those who are opposed, please say no. Okay, so we've passed that permit request as stated by Mr. Rooks. And I'm going to ask for the gentleman who just posed that question, if you will, follow up with Peter Toller for that information.
This is David Small with Jubileescape. I'll get with Peter and give him some options so he can give me an okay on it.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. All right, so now that's all of our permit requests. We're going to move into other business, but before I do that, I want to go back to the treasurer's report and see if, William, you were late getting on the call. Do you have a treasurer's report for us today?
Bert, I did not see it. Usually I get sent the treasury report. Let me know if I'm missing it, but I do not recall seeing it.
Okay.
So the last one that I have before me was the one that was sent for the October meeting, and it shows the beginning balance of August 1st, 2020 of $38,663.09, and then an ending balance as of September 30th of the same amount, $38,663.09. I do believe there has been a deposit since the statement, but Lisa Watkins did not get that forwarded to me today.
Do we need to, was that not approved at the last meeting? Do we need to approve that one for this meeting?
The last meeting did not occur due to a lack of a quorum.
That was due to me, yeah. Yeah, I would just make a motion to approve the October treasury minutes or the treasury statement.
Okay, so we've, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
All right, Evan, thank you. So we've got a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's report. Do we have any other discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report, please let it be known by the sign of aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Okay, so the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Rooks and Mr. Hoffman. All right, so now we'll go back to other business. And looking down here at this list, I'm going to go ahead and let y'all know on number 2, Mr. Blavos could not be with us tonight. I did check with him about it before our meeting, and he unfortunately could not join us. So we're not going to have that one tonight, but we may have that on the next meeting agenda. All right, so number 1, we have Downtown Alliance / Main Street Mobile tree funding request. And this has been on the agenda for a couple of months, and I apologize, we didn't have a meeting last month. So we do want to, cover this. And I'm going to ask if Elizabeth or someone would like to speak just to this part about the funding request. And then after we hear that information, we'll discuss it as a tree commission. So Elizabeth, do you want to speak to that briefly?
Sure. Well, of course, this was made before we kind of changed some of the trees, and the Phoenix is a much more expensive tree to plant than the sable. So I would say, the request stands. We will plant 5 sables and 3 Phoenix sylvestris, maybe on different streets than the initial proposal, and we will, we will endeavor to, I guess, come back with a request to do the other change outs that we discussed, and endeavor to find funds for that, whether that would be y'all or some other entity.
Okay, all right.
We've traditionally, for the last 14 years, we've gotten funding from Keep Mobile Beautiful for our trees plantings, but they are not really in existence anymore, as I understand it, or don't have the money to provide for trees anymore. The grant that they were using to subgrant to us is gone. So we are we're in a bit of a quandary with tree money. So I was talking to Peter this summer, and he said that y'all consider a request for trees, and that's when I did the letter in early August, mid-August, I guess.
Okay, thank you, and certainly we want to discuss this. So tree commissioners, now would be the time for us to talk about this. And if you, as an individual, have a question for Elizabeth, I'd ask that you please go ahead and let her answer that now, so that we can have all of the information we need to make a decision. So do y'all have any questions for Elizabeth on this?
I guess just for me, definitely this is something that, we are interested in doing, we are interested in supporting. We've done several of these in Spring Hill. I am kind of curious. I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I'm trying to remember the last one we did and the amount we donated versus the tree replacement we got. It's just the 8 palms to the 15,000. I don't really know enough of how that money would be delegated for those trees. I don't know if there's any way you can kind of just give what makes those type of palms more expensive. I'm just trying to justify that 15,000 for 8 would be really the right choice for us to make.
Clayton, you want to take that?
Sure. It's a very complicated process, the removal of itself downtown, with the power lines, fiber optics, existing root structure underneath the sidewalk. So really the removal can make up quite a bit of cost when it comes to planting these trees downtown in the 4x4 tree wells. When it comes to the Phoenix sylvestris, those are quite expensive palms. David might be able to speak more to that. Right now, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that that's charged to Jubilee. We're not charging that cost of installation. Those are direct costs from Jubilee, because we feel like it's so important that a professional firm like Jubilee do that work, and not us.
And the numbers I'm looking at, we spend about 1,250 on a sable. In comparison, the Phoenix sylvestris is about 2,500 installed with the tree removal.
So that would be why, like when you do an apples to apples comparison to planting, say, an oak in an area that hasn't had them before, you don't have the removal cost, and that would be why you'd see a increased cost overall, especially for an area downtown where you have already established or you already had something in place before?
Sure. I've had situations downtown where we put 30 to 40 man hours into removal of one existing tree and stump. So the removal cost can be quite expensive.
This is David with Jubilee. Yeah, we've probably done 20 or 30 of these for Downtown Alliance, and every one is its own little
nightmare
piece of wonder. Yeah, nightmare. You know, one will be easy, and then the next one will take 2 days to get out because there's a fiber optic line, a water line, an old gas line they didn't know, and we have to do a lot of it by hand, and then deal with traffic and everything else. And so. And again, to the Sylvester, it's just it's fewer of them, less growers. It's just, I guess, supply and demand more or less. It's a more expensive, a prettier tree, so they just get more money for them. Our cost, I mean, our cost to dig out the tree is the same. It's our cost to buy the tree that's more.
So since there are some unknowns until you get into it, is this where the 15,000 is clearly for the aid if you run into any additional issues or becomes more expensive? Is that something where you guys would find ways for additional cost? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure from the tree commission, if we give the 15,000, that'll guarantee the 8 tree replacement, even if unknown cost comes up.
Yeah, that's our bid. That's how we've done it in the past. I mean, there's only one time we've had to come back where it was just impossible. Like you go down and there's a fiber optic line that's 2 foot down. And the root ball is too big. You can't do it. We just had to move the tree to a different location, but we'd already dug it out. So
usually David will just increase the price dramatically on the next batch of trees if it's really bad.
All right.
That's right.
All right, William, did that satisfy your question, William?
Yes. Yeah, I'm satisfied.
All right. Anyone else want to ask a question at this point? Okay, so this is the time now for, I see your hand, Elizabeth, but were you answering William's question or what are you?
Yeah, right. I wanted to just ask William if, in order to accommodate what's been approved today, if we have to, I mean, the Phoenix is 2,500 versus 1,000. So if we have to do one less sable and one in order to do where a Phoenix was approved, is that okay, or do you want us to hold off, come back with all the set? You see what I mean?
Okay. I guess I see you're seeking information, but we're really trying to get information from y'all at this stage. So
what I could do is I could put a motion on the table and then we can use that as a discussion. Would that be better, Jesse?
No, we're not ready for that yet. My purpose is to give all the tree commissioners right now an opportunity to ask questions of our guests to get the information that you need for us to begin our conversation amongst ourselves. So was anybody else wanting to ask anything or of the guests that we have? Okay, so I'm hearing no other questions, and so let's get into the discussion about this because it is on our agenda. We want to address it. So let me look back. Downtown. Okay, so we've got the tree funding request from, as you've heard, and is there any motion that anyone wants to make or any comments that the tree commission wants to make at this point?
Well, I mean, I would, that's a huge amount of money out of our budget and localized in a very small space. I really don't feel comfortable taking so much of our tree bank money and putting tree fund money into such a small area. I don't have a problem with putting trees on municipal, land, parks, especially throughout the city. But to me, it's a big ask. And for for not that many trees, and it is a very concentrated area. I have a real concern about that.
All right. So Teresa, your point is well taken. Okay, so the request, just for information for everybody on the call, so you know, we can, as a tree commission, we can approve this 100%, or we can amend what we want to approve. It doesn't have to be exactly as it's requested. You know, the tree commission doesn't have to pay for the entire project. So it's not an all or none proposition necessarily. And of course we do, you know, want to promote public trees, and, you know, so I get where both of y'all are coming from. We have to be good stewards at the same time. So I just wanted to point that out kind of as a point of information that, you know, we don't have to do all or none. So keep that in mind as we have the conversation, okay? So does anybody want to make a motion on this, or?
I just, before we do that, I just kind of want to follow up with what Teresa said. I actually share those same concerns. You know, 15,000 for 8 trees does seem to be a heavy ask. However, I do know that, you know, and Jesse, you and I think I've been on about the same length of time. You know, the money, we've always talked about big grand projects, but generally our money sits in the tree bank. And so, you know, we'd like to do something more grand with that money, but if we don't do anything and that money sits in the account, it doesn't help plant any trees anywhere. So Teresa, I 100% agree with your concern, but I'm also looking at, you know, if there's an opportunity to plant anything and a group is willing to come from us, that's something I do kind of weigh. So I just want to make that comment. And Teresa, I don't know if you want to follow up with anything before we make a motion.
And you know, and I absolutely, but I think we haven't, I don't know that this is our only opportunity to try to do a tree planting that would have a bigger impact. I don't know, we weren't really clued in on what's going on in Bienville Square. So there's a public park that's going to have some need for something with trees probably. And maybe down the line, it's, you know, schools or other parks throughout the, you know, the city. There may be chances for us to do something there. I don't know that we have really explored investing the money in a big tree planting. But if we put a lot of our money in just these palms, then we might not even have the opportunity to go out further. And I can see where, you know, the residents of the city of Mobile might not like to see all of that money concentrated in such a small area when there are, you know, probably other places that we could also add trees.
So kind of following, I mean, Teresa had said some things that kind of, you know, gave me an idea. Could we do this in portions, right? Maybe we do some, you know, because they did come in front of us, you know, could we possibly fund the 3 Phoenix Sylvester palms, and then down the road, maybe they could come back to the Sables and we can see if we could reach out, or if there's anything else we could do with that money in the meantime. And that's kind of you know, at least get the project started, you know, get something for them to go move forward. But we're also hesitant with that full amount of money. Is that something that would that be kind of a good compromise, I think? Can we ask the Downtown Alliance, you know, if we just did the Phoenix Sylvestras to start, is there any way we can get an estimated funding for those 3 for this time around?
Well, I would like Forrest William to just to kind of respond to with my thoughts on that. For the planning purposes, I know that they would like to have something definitive to walk away from, so they know what they got to work with. And given that it took 3 or 4 months for us to, get here. I don't know if they want to try to keep coming back. I apologize for that glare on my screen. I had to get to a power source. So, William, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Could they do it in pieces? And I think they could, but whether they should is another matter.
Simply, I think what I'm asking is there something we could walk away approving today that would be a compromise that would be less than the full 15,000?
And the answer to that is yes, we can. That is something we can do.
So, and that's what I'm trying to find out. What would that be, right?
Okay. Well,
what if we proposed to give Downtown Alliance $6,000 towards the planting costs to defray the costs of planting? That would be close, maybe ballpark, to what the three Sylvestris palms would run, and they can, towards defraying the costs of putting those palms in, and then they could look for other revenue sources to do the other replacements.
And I think that's certainly something you could consider, Teresa. William, I just wanted to bring up. I just remembered, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a request from Spring Hill, I remember, and we did fund some. I think it was live oaks they were trying to put in, and it was part of a larger streetscape plan that they had, and so. You remember the tree commission did support that.
Yes.
We wrote a check. It wasn't nearly this much. I want to say it was maybe 3,000 or 4,000. Do you remember, William, what it was?
I thought it was upwards of 9,000, but I thought it included almost 18 live oaks. It was at the roundabout that was added.
Okay.
Which is why I was asking the question of, if you don't have to do removal, those were just planting in wide open areas. They didn't have any removal cost. So that's why you could get more of those live oaks for the same cost.
Right, and those were cheaper.
I was referencing in my mind, yes.
Yeah. So I just bring that up only as a point of reference, so that this is certainly something that I think has merit, and we have a duty to support, tree planting. So I guess we just have to kind of find that balance is what I'm hearing. So at this juncture, I just wanted to ask if anybody would like to make a motion, and let's consider that.
I mean, I guess my only concern is, I would like to hear if the 6,000 would be enough to move forward with 3 of the Phoenix Sylvestras. I mean, before we put that, or do you want us to put that motion on the table and then have discussion after?
I want you to have the information that you need. So you're asking the question, is $6,000 enough to get the project started?
So if we did 6,000 for 3 Phoenix Sylvestras, if I'm saying that right, that's ultimately the question.
Okay.
Teresa, would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so y'all want to let's ask that question to Elizabeth and see if she knows.
I would defer to Clayton because I can't find the proposal on the 3 Phoenixes. Do you have that, Clayton?
We'd be right at 7,500 on the 3 Phoenixes.
Okay. All right, so you've heard that from Clayton. I just did a quick Google of the cost on the trees themselves. It looks like $1,200 is about, about what it costs to buy the tree. So, that's just another point of information. William, does that help you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, and I just from what Clayton said earlier, I had a feeling the 6,000 would be a little low based on the conversation. I mean, Teresa, I myself would be willing to do 7,500 for the 3 Phoenix Silvestros. I know downtown you're not getting as much, but I know there's a lot more removal, cleanup, and eventually we want to continue to chip away at that. I will put that motion on the table to go to conversation of donating $7,500 for 3 Phoenix Silvestro palms, and we'll go from there.
All right, so we've got a motion from William for $7,500 on this funding request. Do we have a second?
Second.
I second it.
Louise, I think that was you.
That was me. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second on the 7,500. And this would be the time for any more discussion on that particular motion. So I just would note that, that is 7,500 is exactly half of what they requested. So just FYI, it sounds like that the 3 Phoenix palm question was resolved. Is there any other discussion on this? Teresa or Evan, Louise, anybody else? Okay, so I'm not hearing any other discussion on the motion. So I will go ahead and call for the question here so that we can vote on this. Anyone who is in favor of the motion of $7,500 for this funding request, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Aye. And all those who are opposed, please say no. Okay, so the ayes have it. And the motion is passed for the $7,500 to support this project. Now, I would say, just as a housekeeping note, we got to get with the treasurer. William, I'm going to just ask you to kind of take the lead on that, since you're the treasurer, to see about how we get the check.
I'll work with
them.
her. Yep, we can address
Okay.
that, and I'll be available for signature.
All right, and I appreciate that. Okay, so moving on, I told you we were going to skip number 2, and we're going to move to number 3, election of officers. Just want to real quickly point out that this is not our October meeting, because we didn't have the October meeting, which we would normally elect our officers in October, but because we didn't have the meeting, we had to delay that until today. And so every year, as you know, our bylaws require us to select a president, vice president, and a secretary treasurer. And so we want to go ahead and do that at this time. And basically what we're going to, y'all can talk about this all we want, but basically what we're going to need is we're going to need to go through each one of these individually: president, vice president, secretary treasurer, and we're going to need to make a motion for each one and a second, and then take a vote on it. So that's kind of the process we need to follow. All right, so let's start the discussion on election of officers by talking about, let's start with chairman, and we'll need a motion and a second on that, and then we'll take a vote.
Did chairman, you talking about president?
I'm sorry, I called it, it's chair and vice chair and secretary treasurer. I accidentally called it president, vice president. That's not what it is, but chair and vice chair. So
doing chair first, right?
Yes, we're talking about the chair.
Okay, and that's a position you have now, correct?
Yes, currently I'm your.
Just clarifying, we're talking about. I would make a motion for Jesse to continue in chair for the following year. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? I would just say I'm deeply honored that you guys would have such confidence in me.
We haven't voted yet, though, so just remember.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by sign of aye.
Aye.
and I will abstain.
If they happen.
All those who are opposed, please say no.
Bye.
All right, so it sounds like the ayes have it. Now we're gonna move on to vice chair. As you know, our current vice chair is Terry Plochet, and he is not with us on the call today, so I can't really speak for him on this, but I'm not sure if he wants to continue with vice chair or not, but I would just make note that Mr. Plochet has missed quite a few meetings this year, and one of the things we do want to make sure is that if the president, or the chair can't be available, we do have to have the vice chair that could run the meeting and, of course, serve in that capacity if needed. So if any of you guys have any thoughts on that, please let it be known, and we'll address vice chair.
I mean, I have thoughts if nobody else would speak up, but Teresa, I'd be willing to make a motion to nominate you for vice chair. I think you've the amount of dedication and research and support you've shown over the last year has been outstanding, and I think it would be simply a nice recommendation of the work that you've put into this commission. So I would make that nomination.
And I will second that. Thank you, William. So we've got a motion and a second for Teresa as vice chair. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, call for the question. If you're in favor of Teresa's vice chair, please let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed, please say no. All right, the ayes have it, and Teresa abstained. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And then Secretary Treasurer, William, you're currently serving in that position.
Anybody want to take it, have it, but I'll keep going if you want.
Are you good? Staying with it?
I'm good.
Okay, so do we have a motion on Secretary Treasurer?
I make a motion that William be Secretary Treasurer.
All right, motion and a second from Evan. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for us to, if you're in favor of the motion of William as Secretary Treasurer for another year, please let it be known by the sign of aye.
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 And all those opposed, please say no. All right, so the ayes have it. And that would round out our selection of officers for the coming year. Appreciate that and look forward to working with you all over this year. Now we need to talk about item number 4, consideration of the 2021 meeting schedule.
Jesse, you might, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt. I've got a 6 o'clock that I need to join. So
okay.
I'm sorry. I have to.
No problem.
It's
sorry.
been a long meeting. Yeah. So.
No problem. No problem. We're going to miss you, but we'll still have a quorum, so we'll keep going.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. So we are going to talk about the meeting schedule for 2021. As you know, we have been meeting on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 4:30. I know we all have it circled on our calendars and we look forward to that every month. I know I do. So if you all have a desire to continue meeting at that day and time, we can continue doing that. We just need to confirm that by making a motion and a second. I do want to ask everybody to just sort of quickly look and see if there's some problem with the 3rd Tuesday. We definitely want to know that. But if you guys are good with it, we can keep going the way we've been doing. So I'll leave it up to the Tree Commission at this time if y'all want to speak up.
I did not see anything, and they already have the Mardi Gras accounted for there. And I didn't see any dates that look like they would be impactful.
Okay. Evan, is this good with you? You think the third Tuesdays
Yep, works for me.
works for you? Okay, and Louise, are you okay with that?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, so do y'all want to just go ahead and make a motion to that effect?
I'll just make a motion to accept the schedule as shown.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to accept the 2021 meeting schedule. And and is there any discussion on that? The only discussion I'd say is that I hope, eventually we can get back to doing this in person. I know that I enjoy those in-person meetings, and I look forward to seeing all of your smiling faces. And so hopefully we can get back to doing that soon. But I'm good with the calendar as it is. So any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of adopting the motion as stated, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those who are opposed, please say no. Okay, so the ayes have it. And the schedule is approved. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. Urban Forestry, do you want to make a report or a summary? I know you guys have been, gangbusters, with the hurricanes. I've seen the crews, everybody has. We just applaud you and thank you so much for what y'all do, because it is dangerous work.
Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty much the fastest I could come up with our completed work for the month of October. We have over 400 completed locations throughout the city. The link was emailed to each and every one of you, so you can sift through this. I'll kind of give you a rundown of the month of October. Hurricane Sally affected pretty much, you could take the peninsula and head west on Moffett and Old Shell Road. Let me zoom in here to show. Jesse, as you can see, quite a bit of action took place in your district. William, District 6, Louise, District 1, you got hit pretty hard. And Jesse, your district goes up into here a little ways. Hey, I mean, the best summary I can give you, it's been nonstop action for 2 solid months. Even when you go in more, there's still hot spots that shows where trees failed. The majority of these pins that you see is all tree failures that took place from the storms. When Hurricane Sally hit, 72 hours in, we were over 450 locations with tree failures that were blocking the city streets. And in a lot of these locations that you see, there was multiple trees stacked up on top of one another. I can tell you this from a public education standpoint, a lot of these trees, from what I could tell from briefly going around, there was soil compaction in places. There was what appeared to be roots pruned improperly in certain locations. And this damage could have taken place 10 to 15 years ago in some spots based on the tree species and diameter. It could have taken place even longer before that, a lot longer before that. But as you can see, there was really and truly no part of the city was spared. West Mobile did not get it as bad. Cypress Shores, we got hardly any calls from there. Dolphin Island Parkway, Midtown, and all the way up Spring Hill and Old Shell, there was a lot of trees down, a lot of trees. Later on, when everything calms down, we can actually meet in person. It may be a good idea to ride some corridors to talk about tree replacements in areas. But right now, in a lot of these spots where you see pink and blue, those are areas that we're going back to verify that debris is up, to make sure that everything's been is doing correctly. So if any of y'all have any questions, I'm open to it. Fire away.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks again, Peter. I've been thinking about y'all during all of this. And, one of the things that I have come into my mind as I'm driving around, of course, I live in District 2, so I'm over on Old Shell Road, kind of close to Broad Street. and I see a lot of trees that have fallen, many of them in people's yards, but some of them in the right of way, been big losses, really pretty trees. And I guess my question is, some of them are still, when I drive around my area, I see quite a few stumps and trees that are sort of half, cut down. Can you just talk about, do you expect to have to be working on grinding up stumps for quite a while, or how long do you expect this to continue in terms of cleanup?
Oh, goodness gracious. I believe, now I'm not going to speak on behalf of DRC because I haven't looked at their debris cleanup progress, but I think we're halfway through. We're either at the beginning or halfway through phase 2. Once all the debris, treetops, logs, everything that's up, then we'll work on grinding stumps. Jesse, this could be into the summer of next year, trying to get everything correct. I mean, by a rough estimate on iTree, we literally manage 8 million trees that are in the right of way and on city property. So it's quite a lot.
All right. Do y'all have any questions for Peter? All right. I'm not hearing any, but I know that we'll have some as we go. And y'all always feel free. Anytime I see something I want to have a question about, Peter's always been good about, trying to answer our questions. So if y'all have a question, feel free to reach out to Peter and his team as we go. Do you want to just give us a 1-minute update on the Broad Street Tiger Grant project? I know that's something that okay. Can you give
absolutely. Right now, the construction's in the roundabout. We have laid out extensively the preservation instructions for the contractor around the live oaks that are remaining in the roundabout. There will be hydro excavation to make sure that the critical root zones are not impeded on those trees. That's currently where we are. Up and down the project, the trees that have been removed are down and the stumps are out. We make patrols down Broad Street at least 2 to 3 times a week to make sure everybody's staying off the existing tree roots. If they are laying a sidewalk down, that it's done within ANSI standards. That's pretty much a brief explanation of what's going on Broad Street at this time.
Okay. All right. Good deal. I appreciate that. And anybody else got a question? And I want to apologize, Peter. Next time I'm going to put y'all up higher in the agenda. We had just such a long agenda tonight. I didn't even think about moving y'all up so you could go sooner. So
it's okay.
Next time we'll try to do that. Eric, if you're still on the call, do you want to give us an update at all? I know y'all have been kicking butt too, working hard for the power company. So let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, Jesse, I appreciate that. Really, I just want to get it out there that, we're still doing mop-up patrols, much like Peter. We do multiple feeder patrols after we have hurricane events like this, trying to deal with the immediate hot spots and then anything else that we uncover. As you can imagine, with the thousands of miles of lines we patrol, we don't get it all the first time through. So we depend on the engineering group to assist us, as well as our foresters to do those tree patrols to get the danger trees and off right away edge trees. One thing I would just throw out there for you guys is if you see anything, definitely give us a call. I've got the 1-800 number. It's probably the quickest way to get through customer service. Of course, any of you guys know me and can contact me directly via email or just give me a call on my cell. But that 1-800 number is 245-2244.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on. I'm going to type that in the chat so that people can write it. What is that number?
It's the 1-800-245-2244. And that's our direct APCO customer service. They basically, anything dealing with the power lines, you can call them about. But, specifically in this situation, if you see something that looks like a hazard, something doesn't sound right, look right, or feel right when you're looking at a tree or a power line, definitely call us and let us know. Like I said, we're doing everything we can post storm to evaluate and ride through lines, and trying to get the immediate issues and safety concerns, dealt with. But it, much like Peter, it takes months when we're impacted at the level we were, to mop everything up. So we're working through it the best we can.
Eric, I have a question for you. I know a lot of folks like me who don't know a lot about power lines and so forth. When you see some lines down that could possibly be like communication lines and not power lines, what advice do you have for people? I mean, should they be calling Alabama Power just regardless of whether it's a...
My suggestion is yes, because if it's attached to our facilities, there's always potential for it to become an energized conductor, whether or not it's actually tied to us directly or just on one of our poles. It's good to let us know so we can come out and take a look at it. A lot of our triplex and wrap secondary looks similar to cable and communication lines because it does have a sheathing and a cover on it. But yeah, if it's attached to our poles, let us look at it, and then we'll let you know to call AT&T, or we'll call them and contact them sometimes directly. I don't like to speak on their behalf, but their lines are low voltage, generally is an immediate emergency to respond to. So sometimes they're not as quick to come out as we are. But if you call us and say there are lines down attached to our power poles, we're going to want to come look at it and evaluate it, because it may be something we need to get them to deal with. So there is not a potential for there to be another hazard. Guy wires can break in storms, and those are the down guy anchors that you see going from a pole down to an anchor in the ground. Mm-hmm. It's not beyond in a storm situation, one of those to be broken and thrown up into energized conductors, and that can energize things on the pole. It can cause all kind of havoc. So most of that we have safety devices in place to catch and for us to be able to respond to pretty quickly. But anything can happen in a storm situation. Nothing's where it should be, and things get damaged, and we don't always catch them right away. But in most cases, I would say if it's a down wire, give us a call first. Let us evaluate it, because even though it may not be ours, if it is tied to our poles, there's potential there for it to give, have some exposure there on a hazard.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know, because I've seen many wires down, and I, have always wondered if those were something to be concerned about. But what you're saying is to always err on the side of just calling and reporting it.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
Let the professionals figure it out.
That's right. We've had several situations where phone and cable lines have sagged into roadways, and they're impacted by vehicles, and in turn they're tied to our poles, so they're going to impact us. So even though it's not our line, it's an immediate concern for us, because it could bring down a wire or a pole or cause some collateral damage. So definitely just let us come and look at it, and that's what that 1-800 number is for. We've got folks out there 24/7 that can go respond. If it's something in the middle of the night, you see a spark or you hear a loud noise, definitely let us know. But overall, I think we've done good, as far as our mop up patrols. We're still finding trees, but that's all part of it. Those trees continue to fall for months after the storm when we've had an event like this. So there's a lot of damaged trees that have crown damage and things that don't show up right away. And as Peter can attest, we get calls all the time with tree failures after an event like what we went through.
Yeah, Jesse, some supplemental information to add to the power company number. If it's during the day, 7 a.m. to roughly 4 to 5 p.m., people can call 311, report a tree limb hanging, tree down. Urban Forestry is on call 24/7 as well. If it is after hours and you don't think a power line is involved, you can call police non-emergency at night, and they will dispatch us out at night. So that's another piece of information to add to the puzzle.
And Jesse, one more quick thing. Don't assume somebody else is called. But Peter and I worked one last week where I had to bring a crane in for a tree downtown, actually in one of the historic districts. Peter would probably remember exactly where it was, but I've had too many. and that tree had been there since after the storm, over a roadway, over two structures, and actually impacting a third structure. And neither of us had gotten a call. One of our ticket crews was actually responding to a similar situation and ran across that on just their routine patrols on mop up, and it had been there for about 3 or 4 days. So don't assume anybody else has called. If you've not seen action on something that looks hazardous, please let us know.
Okay. No, that's great information. I appreciate that, Eric, and thanks again. I'm gonna go back to my agenda. I believe that was all that we had for tonight. Do we have any announcements that anybody wants to make? Hearing none, I would ask and see if anyone would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I would motion we adjourn. Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second from Evan to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and we stand adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience. I know this was